Creamline Dairy Products, established in the year 1990. It's almost 29th year of existence. And in 2015, we partnered with Godrej Agrovet as a group company. And since then, we are working to enhance the value-added product portfolio of Jersey. Jersey is a brand which established with the sole purpose of enriching the lives of farmers and consumers. And Creamline Dairy Products has got 100 odd chilling centers with 10 processing plants across southern India, all the 6 states. And after joining with Godrej, our outlook is more skewed towards enhancing the value-added products. Today, the prime purpose of inviting all of you is to unveil this report, South India Protein Gap, which Godrej Creamline has organized with the help of Carvi Insights, and this report has been covered all the 5 states of South India. So normally everybody is aware about protein gap. I think shortly you are going to see the report and you'll be able to understand all those details. But in general, in India, 90% of the people, both farmers and the society consumes more than 90% of carbohydrates because of the affordability. And protein is, being a vegetarian nation, most of the vegetarians will have that issue of protein. Many of them are aware, but some of them will not be able to get, because milk and egg are the primary source of the protein. And being vegetarian means then milk will become the only source and most important source of protein. The vegetables also covers some of them. But in general, we found a lot of gap, protein gap in southern India. So I think we have Dr. Harini Krishnan to address all the protein related. She's a more than 25-year-old experienced dietitian. She worked extensively with the consumers and hospitals and the health aspect. And our CEO Raj Kanwar Singh will be giving you brief details about take you through the report and then give you insights about the performances and all that based on your questions. Once again, thank you very much for joining us. Raj, I think you can take forward.
So, my apologies, ma'am. I mean, we have Dr. Harini Krishnan. I missed to mention her. So before I invite Mr. Raj to share details about the report. May I invite all to unveil the report? So Mr. Raj Kanwar would now throw more details about the report. So.
Thank you, Nagi. Uh, Thank you, Mr. Bhaskar Reddy. Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to this press conference. And thank you for joining us. It's our pleasure to take you through the findings of this report. So, many researchers have shown that India is deficient in protein. So, a very large scale of protein deficiency has impacted the health of Indians, children, adults, rich, poor, everybody is impacted by protein deficiency. So you can see reference to various reports which refer to protein deficiency in different parts of India. So what are the issues impacting protein consumption in India? So it was earlier assumed that it is only about affordability, that people don't have the money to source or buy enough protein for consumption. But that is not the complete story. There is another aspect which is even more glaring. Even people who can afford, they are not able to get enough protein in their diets. The reason being lack of understanding of what is protein, how important it is, what role does it play, and what is a balanced diet which has enough protein in it. So that is the crux of our report. So just for our understanding, what is protein and how important it is. So protein is an important building block of bones, muscles, cartilage, skin, blood. So it is effectively a must for the entire body. It impacts the growth and development of the body, builds immunity, leads to healthy bones, increases muscle mass, healthy hair, replacement and repair of body cells. And what is the amount of protein required? So protein is required in the ratio of 1 gram of protein daily per kg of body weight. So let us say for children, ideally it should be around 30 to 35 grams of protein daily. For ladies, maybe about between 50 and 60 grams of this. And for gents, maybe between 60 and 80 grams depending on the body weight. So that is the amount of protein required. And protein deficiency leads to weak bones, bone fractures, risk of stunted growth among children, and higher risk of infections. It reduces immunity. And now let us see this research which has been conducted by Carvi Insights across 4 states of South India. So why South India? So there are many reports which have covered the protein deficiency across India. But people generally believe that this is largely in the poorer sections of society. South is relatively richer, more educated. But what we find is that even in South, there are pockets and there are segments of people who, even when they can afford it, they are not getting enough protein. And that is impacting their health. So what we find is that in Hyderabad, at least the awareness of protein is quite good. At 68% of the consumers are aware that protein is important and it's a necessary part of daily diet. The corresponding number for Chennai is only 25% of the people are aware that protein is important. And Bangalore, only 5% of people are aware that protein is important. That is a very interesting divergence. If you see education levels, if you see any other parameter, there is not much to differentiate between Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai. Yet we see very stark differences in awareness of the importance of protein among these cities. So 68% of the people are not aware of protein requirement across these 4 states among the surveys group that was surveyed. 61% could not associate protein with the right attributes. Vegetarians are particularly badly impacted. 75% of vegetarians are not aware of the requirement of protein, and 47% people wrongly believe that protein leads to a healthy heart, whereas protein actually does not impact heart. And overall, surprisingly, while the youngsters, mothers are very well aware that children need milk, okay, and milk gives them protein, calcium, and so on. But adults, 54% of the adults, and these are well-to-do adults, literate, educated, and the mother is giving protein to the child, but they are not giving enough milk or milk products and hence protein to herself and the husband or other elders in the family. So that was a very, very surprising conclusion that while in the same family, same affordability, same literacy, the children are getting protein, but the adults are not getting protein, and 54%, that means majority of the adults are not getting enough protein. Some more interesting insights into this. Only 32% of the adults consume milk. Okay. With age, milk preference reduces. Adults tend to take more tea, coffee, and meals and snacks, and less of milk. And that leaves a very big gap in their nutritional requirement. The next point is even more interesting. So when you ask people how many adults consume milk, it's like you ask people how many people go to the gym. Everybody says, yes, I go to the gym. Even though they may be going once a month, twice a month, but everybody will raise their hands. Okay. So same is the story with milk. 53% of adults say they consume milk, but actually when we sit down and watch their daily habit, only 15% consume milk. So there is a big gap between what people perceive and what they are actually consuming. And that is leading to a wide gap in the nutrition requirement. Only 3% of the actual protein consumed by adults comes from milk, whereas ideally it should be above 20% of the protein. So if, for example, we are saying an adult is about 60 kgs, they need 60 grams of protein, then 12 grams of protein needs to come from milk, ideally. But only about, 1/4 of that is actually coming, or less than 1/4, maybe 1/6 of that is actually coming from milk. Okay. And hence they are protein deficient. So 92% people rightly believe that consuming milk and dairy products will help fulfill their protein requirement. And 75% of people say that milk is a rich source of protein. And 80% of milk consumers, people who consume milk, 80% of them by and large are protein sufficient. That means they are getting enough protein for their daily requirement. So people who take milk regularly, adults who take milk, children who take milk, are generally seen to be protein sufficient. Whereas largely adults we find are not, a lot of them are not taking enough milk, and hence they are largely protein deficient. Sorry. So survey also tried to cover what people believe is the biggest or richest source of protein. So we've looked at various food categories, and within that, if you see total top of mind and spontaneous recall of what are the elements which have the highest protein, milk comes right at the top. Then almonds, green leafy vegetables, eggs, pulses, butter, fish, wheat, chicken, mutton, potato, curd, rice. So all these things people believe have protein. So there will be some protein in everything, but not all of them have the equal amount of protein. So milk and curd is one rich source of protein. Other rich sources of protein are eggs, chicken, mutton, fish, and so on. So for vegetarians, pulses is another source of protein. Dr. Harini will tell you about the different sources of protein and how they are available to the body for consumption. So in this survey, for the first time ever, we've also tried to look at various people involved in the milk supply chain and what are the challenges they face. So we've also interviewed farmers. So farmers are the people who supply milk to the dairy companies, and dairy companies then process, pack, and supply to consumers. Then we've also covered the feed producers. So feed producers are the people who source feed and manufacture feed in the right nutrition, right quality, quantity, which can help the farmer and the cow give better milk. So in terms of dairy farmers, 3-4 big concerns. So maintaining health of cattle is a very, very prime concern. If the cattle fall sick, they do not necessarily have access to medical facilities, proper treatment, proper medicines, and doctors for the cattle. So Godrej Jersey has taken on itself a lot of effort over the years. We've organized thousands of medical camps for cattle to help the farmer in this. So this has come again as the prime concern for the farmer. Then sourcing the right feed. What is the feed which will help the cattle be in good health? What is a nutritionally balanced feed for the cattle, which can help the cattle stay in good health and give good quality of milk? So I'm happy to share that Godrej feed is the #1 cattle feed in the country, and we are able to provide solution to the top 2 concerns that farmers have raised. Third is, as with every farmer, there is a concern around predictability and viability of the rates offered by all companies. So there is a period when milk is excess, there is a period when milk is short, and the price at which milk is sold by the farmer also varies from season to season. So that fluctuation in the rates, and at some points in time, that rate can go very low. That is one concern the farmers have expressed, that the price of milk fluctuates from season to season, which is true for every agri commodity. So whether you take rice, wheat, any other thing, the price of that fluctuates in the market depending on supply and demand. So these are the top 3 concerns which have been raised by the farmers. Now let's look at feed processors. Their biggest concern is raw materials. So feed processors will normally use agri raw materials, maize, corn, green fodder, and various other kinds of agri produce for making the nutritionally balanced cattle feed. Now supply and demand of that tends to fluctuate from year to year, month to month. So at some point in time, this year specifically, there is a very big concern that because of excess monsoons in many parts of the country, the availability of raw material for making feed will be a concern. It will not be smooth. And at previous points in time, there was a drought and so on. So that is the cycle of Indian agriculture. So that remains the top concern of the feed manufacturers. Collection of raw material is very tedious. So all these companies, including Godrej, which is the leading #1 cattle feed producer in the country, has to go to all parts of the country and source from the mandis the requirement of various kinds of grains. And price fluctuations again, depending on supply and demand. For the last 1 year or so, the price of all raw material has been going up, and hence the price of feed has also been rising. Concerns of milk processors. These are various companies, dairy companies like Godrej Jersey. Their concern is that milk and milk products have to be delivered every day early in the morning, irrespective of holidays, rain, road breakdown, Diwali, New Year. There is no holiday. Okay, so milk has to reach every household early in the morning. There can be no delay, there can be no holiday. So timely delivery in a temperature managed state so that it reaches at the appropriate temperature to the consumer is the biggest concern. Price volatility again. So if you see, price volatility has stayed constant across all segments of the supply chain, and ensuring quality in supply chain. So sourcing of milk from the farmer, ensuring quality at that end, processing in the right manner, and then when you're delivering to the consumer, ensuring that it is delivered in a hygienic manner. These are the 3 top concerns of the dairy companies. So how do we bridge the protein gap? I think there is a pressing need to create awareness, first of all. And today, there is immense amount of, let us say, interest, curiosity, and yearning among the caregivers in the family, largely mothers, but caregivers in the family, they want to give a balanced diet to all people in the family. They're very, very health conscious, they're very aware, yet they do not get right source of information. There is no one source of information which will tell people what is actually lacking or what needs to improve. So like I said, mothers are very well aware that children need to have milk, but they were not as aware about the need of adults to have milk. So there is limited awareness on benefits of protein and the role of proteins in maintaining good health. Like we say, mothers ensure that children largely remain protein sufficient, but adults, the consumption of milk drops sharply, and 54% plus of adults tend to be protein deficient. In fact, if I recall right, the number of vegetarian adults which are protein deficient is close to 90%. What was the number exactly? 73%. So 73% of vegetarian adults are protein deficient. So, but all adults, 54% of them are, 53% of them, 54% of them are protein deficient. So milk remains an accessible source of protein. So if you consume 2 glasses of milk a day, that gives you about 20% of the daily protein. So that's one message we would like to give to all our, the people who are going to be reading the news that you publish, that adult or child, you need to have about 2 glasses of milk per day. That will ensure that sufficient protein is delivered to your body and you get a balanced diet. Sorry, 83% of milk non-consumers, people who don't consume milk, 83% of them are protein deficient. Okay, so that shows you the importance of milk in bridging the gap in protein requirement. So in addition to that, milk is a complete source of calcium, vitamin, minerals, etc. And it is the only complete food. The only thing which is lacking in milk is fiber, which you get from wheat or rice. Other than that, everything that the body needs is there in milk. So milk is the only complete food. And protein intake can be enhanced with consumption of other dairy products like curd, paneer, buttermilk, and also with eggs, fish, chicken, mutton, and pulses. So that's essentially what the report tells us. Thank you. I would now request Dr. Harini to address you and share with you the requirements. Thank you.
Dr. Darini, please. So Dr. Darini is a renowned nutritionist. Mr. Bhaskar has already introduced her. She will tell us as to how to bridge this gap and how dairy plays a role in that.
So thank you for inviting me here. And now I'm going to talk about the importance of protein and how we can bridge the gap if we really want to. So milk and milk products play a major role, and why? That is what we're going to see. So in South Indian diets, as we know, are rich in carbohydrates, and before time we used to take a lot of dal, which is pulses, but today we are not doing that because mixed rice plays a very important role in a rushed home to create something, a food quickly, a tamarind rice or a lime rice. So that one thing that goes is dal. And protein is essential not only for all the things that Dr. Raj spoke about, but also for the maintaining the pyramid of energy, where carbohydrate, protein and fat are the 3 main things, and in which protein is a very important thing. So when we talk about dairy, why it's so important is the protein that comes from dairy, whether it's curd or milk or paneer, has a high biological value, which means that it is more absorbed in the body compared to other types.